I get a trump. Good morning, you of Sarasota. Please rise and by the and/or spirit for our opening hymn 352, Find a Stillness.
Silence, never silence, carry me.
Good morning. I'm Reverend J. Wolin, the settled minister here at the... Oh, and my computer went down. How great is that? Well, I guess it asked me to save it again. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yes, please document recovery. Okay. Well, I do have a printed backup in case this does not work out. But anyway... we want to extend a... No, I don't want to see the repairs. Oh, my gosh. Oh, well, so be it. No, I don't want to delete it either. It's, it's very strange. This is, is a very theological thing. Will my file be reborn if I delete it? I don't know. Well, we want to... Oh, there's a bottle of water for baptism for my file, I guess. Sometimes you just got to roll with it. Well, we want to extend our welcome, a warm welcome to everyone, but especially our visitors here and over live stream as well. We invite everyone, including visitors, to all of our events here at the UU. We welcome visitors to find out more about us and Unitarian Universalism by registering on our guest book, either virtually on our website, uusrq.org. And if you are here in person, there's a sign-up sheet on the welcome desk right outside. And if you do, we will send you our weekly newsletter, and you will get Zoom links for events that are happening, like today's 3 o'clock World Scripture class on Christianity. Let's see, what else? Do I have anything else to say? No, we look forward to getting to know each other. Please join us outside for coffee and snacks after the service. We have a few announcements today. One, tonight at 5:30, we will be holding a solstice service. I strongly encourage it. I've always found it to be a very meaningful service, and I hope that it'll be participatory, so I hope that you can attend. As well, we will be having our traditional Christmas Eve candlelight service on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., and then on Christmas Day, from 2 to 4, we'll be having a Christmas celebration. And so please bring a savory or sweet treat or a favorite beverage to share, and a small recycled gift for a fun exchange, wrapped or in a bag, doesn't matter. All are welcome as we come together in the many different ways to share the spirit of this season. And now I am, while I'm trying to figure out my computer, I am very proud as well to invite up and welcome our musical guest today, Linda Bento-Rei. Yeah. I have performed a miracle and got my computer to be working again. Our opening reading is from the Reverend Howard Thurman, Candles for Christmas. I will light candles this Christmas, candles of joy despite sadness, candles of hope where despair keeps watch, candles of courage for fears ever present, candles of peace for tempest-tossed days, candles of grace to ease heavy burdens, and candles of love to inspire all my living. Candles that will burn all year long. And so today we will be lighting many candles. Thank you, Catherine, for helping with this. Tonight is the solstice, marking the shortest day of sunlight. And today is the fourth Sunday of Advent in the Christian tradition and the seventh day of Hanukkah in the Jewish tradition. So from our solstice tradition, we will light our chalice, and there'll be something for us to say up on the screen. No? Okay. Go ahead, light our chalice. Be a symbol of more light coming into our lives. And now let us light our Advent candles, the first three candles for peace, hope, and joy. And this, the fourth Sunday of Advent, we add a candle for love. May our commitment to love bring us closer together across divisions, and may love move us to healing ourselves and the world. And please say together. We light these candles for peace, hope, joy, and love. And as we light the menorah today for the seventh day of Hanukkah, I share this Jewish prayer, and you can start lighting as I start the prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu lahadlik neh shel Hanukkah. And now together. May we maintain the obligation to continue to kindle the light of love.
It's a lot of candle power. Today's story is The Winter Solstice Wish by Kate Allen Fox and illustrated by Elisa Paganelli. In the shortest day of winter, when golden light disappears faster than a steaming cup of cocoa, we savor every drop of sunshine. We slurp down every moment, knowing that dusk soon lurks. This time of year, when our half of the planet tips further and farther from the sun, we pass more and more hours in the shadows, cold and night. Until today, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Today, we stretch the daylight as much as we can, trying to make it last. We beachcomb and build castles, grains of sand slipping slyly through our hands. And as the last fingers of sunlight stretch above the horizon, shrinking with every minute, we unpack our firewood, piling piece upon piece, collecting them like candles for wishing. A wish for light, a wish for hope, a wish for renewal. Wish by wish, our pile grows until the day slips away. Night surrounds and envelops and embraces. So we search for the light, When fear prickles our skin, our hands reach for one another, squeezing in silent reassurance. A reminder, I am still here. I promise I always will be. Then a match flicks, whoosh, and flashes and whooshes to life, flame by tiny flame. The heat grows, building into a blaze. The amber flames lick the sky, savoring the star-speckled night. Light reflects off the sand, creating an orb just for us alone. And we sit in the glow, in the heat, in the aura of wishes grown large, of the light we have built together. And around the globe, other hands reach out, holding hope, holding space, holding one another. Hands that span to the far side of the globe where others bask in a solstice of their own, the longest day of their year. And here we rest easy, knowing that our side of the earth will, little by little, tilt back toward the sun, that tomorrow daylight will return, that it will grow and grow, minute by minute, day after day, and that we will savor every drop together. May it be so. I now invite the children and youth to join their teachers in the West Wing for a holiday party. Thank you.
Okay, the computer is still there. Our centering in words today are from Jan Richardson, Blessing for the Longest Night. all throughout these months, as the shadows have lengthened, this blessing has been gathering itself, making ready, preparing for this night. It has practiced walking in the dark, traveling with its eyes closed, feeling its way by memory, by touch, by the pull of the moon, even as it wanes. So believe me when I tell you, this blessing will reach you, even if you have not enough light to read it. It will find you, even though you cannot see it coming. You will know the moment of its arriving by your release of the breath that you have held for so long, a loosening of the clenching in your hands, of the clutch around your heart, a thinning of the darkness that has drawn itself around you. This blessing does not mean to take the night away. No, but it knows its hidden roads, knows the resting spots along the path, knows what it means to travel in the company of a friend. So when this blessing comes, take its hand, get up, set out on the road you cannot see. This is the night when you can trust that any direction you go, you will be walking towards dawn. As we go into a time of silence, I invite you to contemplate what dawns await you in the new year. So growing up Jewish, my family would spend Christmas Eve with Catholic friends who had children about the same age as my family, and we would exchange presents and play games, and then on Christmas Day, my family would go out to the movies and eat Chinese food. Sometimes stereotypes stem from true experiences. But other than having time off from school, honestly, I never really thought much about the meaning of Christmas as a child, or who this Santa Claus person was, whom I mostly encountered on television. And when I became a Unitarian Universalist, I attended numerous solstice services, and I learned that long before Christianity, midwinter was already a sacred holiday. Romans celebrated Saturnalia. Northern Europeans marked Yule, and across cultures, people gathered at the darkest point of the year to feast, to make vows, and to mark the return of the light. When Christianity spread westward, December 25th was chosen as the birth of Jesus, not because it appears in the Bible, because it does not, but it did not become the official church doctrine until about the 4th century AD, some 300 years or so after Jesus' death. So just an arbitrary date chosen to align with the pagan solstice holidays, and so the return of the sun, S-U-N, became the return of the sun, S-O-N. And when I became a Unitarian Universalist, I also started attending Christmas Eve services. My wife grew up Methodist, which was one of the things that attracted me to Unitarian Universalism. And at those Christmas Eve services, they talked about celebrating the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, much like I will do Wednesday night, but there was nothing about St. Nicholas. And then, as part of a spirituality program I took a number of years ago, I was reading a book entitled Daily Reflections on Saints, Prophets, and Witnesses for Our Time, and the entry for December 6th was St. Nicholas. So I thought, well, that's odd. Why didn't they put him on December 25th, which had a Franciscan poet listed on the 25th? And as it turns out, really there is no contemporaneous historical information about St. Nicholas at all. He lived in the 3rd century, which is now southern Turkey, and he was remembered primarily for his generosity, especially legends providing dowries for poor girls. And whether the stories are historically precise matters less than the fact that they endured, carried forward through centuries of oral storytelling. Again, there's nothing wrong with storytelling about things that have good moral teachings. So how did we get from St. Nicholas to Santa Claus to Christmas on December 25th? As a Jew, this is something that fascinated me. I have to admit, the story is actually fairly shocking to me. And yes, surprisingly, Unitarians and Universalists had a large part to do. They were deeply involved in creating Christmas as we now know it. Through most of Christian history, Christmas was not a publicly celebrated holiday. It did not become a national holiday in America until 1870. And in fact, in Europe throughout the Middle Ages and continuing in the Americas through the 1800s, Christmas season had become a time to let off steam and gorge oneself on food and drink. Maybe not so different now, but again, in an agricultural society, which most of the world was, until the 1800s, it actually makes sense. By December, the harvest had already been taken in. The ground was too hard to plant anything. Animals could be killed to eat, not here in Florida, but up north or in colder temperatures, the weather was cold enough that you could store the animal and store the meat. The wine had time to ferment, was ready to drink, and there was nothing to do. So people ate and drank to excess. And there are many, many cultures where there were role reversal, where the masters became the servant and the servant became the master. To this day in Britain, on December 25th, officers in the armed services serve the enlisted men as part of this tradition. And but until the late 19th century, it went much further than that, and in some ways was a strategic way to allow the poor to release their anger, right? Wassailers, which you're going to hear about Wednesday night, as one group were known, were roving gangs of young men who were poor, who would come into wealthy people's homes, would sing songs or act out plays until the owner would provide them food or drink. It was a time when wealth disparity was great, and at that time of year when the poor made the demands on the wealthy. And there was also an implied threat that if some gain was not provided, damage to the person or their home would happen. And often if the homeowner refused to answer the door, windows would be broken or worse. There were boundaries that were there for the most part, accepted by both sides. But as society moved to be more industrialized, the classes did not mingle as much. The wealthier people moved farther away from poor neighborhoods. Sometimes the blacksmith or the restaurant server might put up a sign explicitly asking for money around Christmas when a wealthy person would come for service, with a wink that if a gift wasn't given, service might just go awry. Other bands of roving gangs would travel to people's homes and demand that they hand over money. So it gives one a different impression now of thinking about carolers today, or Christmas bonuses, or holiday parties, right? This is where the origins of those come from. Think about Halloween, right? Where even today, children go to people's houses and expect to be given a treat, or else there will be a trick, right? It's all very tame right now, but it wasn't always that way. It was very violent at times. It was not until the 19th century when the Unitarians and the Universalists, as well as others, but it was led by us, put a plan in motion to end and transform not only threats of violence, but use Christmas to transform and about how we think of and raise our children. And we'll get more into that in the second reflection. One such limerick, though, that these gangs would sing when they entered people's homes was, "Ladies and gentlemen sitting by the fire, put your hands in your pocket and give us our desire," end quote. And with that history in mind, we will now receive our offering. Please be as generous as you can. For those online or in person, there's a QR code or a link in the YouTube. Let this sacred time begin. And next reading is also from the Reverend Howard Thurman, Against the Background of the Year. Another Christmas has moved with our ken, and our minds linger over many moments that stand stark against the background of the year. Moments that filled our cup of fear to the brim, spilling over into the byways of our mind until there was no longer room even to know that we were afraid. Moments of decision, when all that we were seemed to hang in the balance, waiting for a gentle nudging of the Spirit to break the tie and send us off in a new direction, a new desire, a new way of life. Moments of sadness brought on by the violent collapse or quiet sagging of a lifetime of dream building upon which our hopes and aspirations rested in sure integrity. Moments of awareness when our whole landscape was invaded by the glow of the Spirit, making dead things come to newness of life, and old accepted ways turn into radiant shafts of beauteous light. Moments of joy mingled with the deadly round of daily living, when all our inward parts clapped their hands and a new song was born in our heart. Moments of peace amid the noisy clang of many conflicts within and without. Moments of reassurance when we discovered that our searching anxieties were groundless and without foundation. Moments of reconciliation made possible by deeper understanding and a greater wisdom. Moments of renewal without which life would have been utterly impossible. And for us this day, there would be no Christmas and no day. Moments of praise and thanksgiving when in one grand sweep the sheer wonder and beauty of living overwhelmed us. Another Christmas has moved into our ken, and our minds linger over many moments that stand stark against the background of the year. And it is my hope that we focus on the moments that bring us joy, resilience, and thanksgiving. And now, once more, something that brings me great joy, the music of Linda Bento-Rei. So throughout all time, there were people who wanted to, if not celebrate Christmas more reverently, at least end what they saw as a threat. Now, the Puritans, briefly in England and then more successful in colonial Massachusetts, attempted to ban Christmas altogether, seeing it as dangerous, disorderly, and unchristian. And actually for a long time in Massachusetts, it was banned for about a period of 17 years. But ultimately that effort failed, but the concern remained. There were numerous attempts by clergy and others, especially merchants, to change the culture of Christmas. In the early 19th century, both Unitarians and Universalists attempted to hold services actually on Christmas Day, December 25th. And they worked with local businesses who agreed to close down for the day. However, after a couple of years, interest waned and the business community did not want to close down. And however, there was a real difference between urban environments and agricultural communities. If the factories closed down because the river was iced up, the workers were unemployed. And there was no such thing as unemployment insurance then, and this led to more and more violence and unrest among the poor and more fear among the wealthy. So the wealthy made an effort at first to use armed guards and then created a public police force to control these roving gangs. That would not be enough. And in the early 19th century, wealthy reformers, most notably a group called the Knickerbockers in New York, used literature to reshape Christmas. Writers like Washington Irving recast St. Nicholas not as a figure demanding tribute, but as a benign presence who gave gifts within the family. Some stories were used as a way to coerce behavior. Think of the song, "He knows when you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake." Right, comes from a poem of that era. Right, you will only get a gift if you're good. Right, the poem "The Night Before Christmas" by Clement Moore, written in 1821, which borrows from some of Irving's character, was one that proposed a most benevolent, non-judgmental Santa Claus. The author Moore was a more conservative, wealthy man who inherited all his land and money and never worked a day in his life. So when he wrote, "When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter," he is bringing up the image of these gangs coming into the house. And then the next line, "He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot," would have certainly brought up images of gangs dressed in costume to raid the house. But instead of gangs taking goods, the poem now says it was Santa Claus and an elf giving goods and gifts. So to make Santa a more proletariat gift giving to all. And the key, and this is where Unitarians come into the story again, and number one, they were prodigious writers back then, is to change the holiday into a child-centric and family event. Now, this was a significant amount of concern that lavishing children with gifts would make them self-centered. Where have we heard that recently? Right, but this is the same dilemma. We just imagine that's only in our time, but that happened back then as well. And it is very theological, right? Most Christians of that day believed that humans were born of original sin and that no amount of good works could absolve them, only grace could. But Unitarians and Universalists reject the idea of original sin. They believe children were born with innate potential and that nurturing rather than punishment or coercement allowed that potential to unfold. Right, and I think that's expressed Unitarian Ralph Waldo Emerson in his essay Nature wrote, "The best people were those who retained the spirit of infancy, even into the era of adulthood. The wisdom of a person's best hour was no better than the simplicity of their childhood," end quote. And we also see many quotes in the Christian scriptures about Jesus telling everyone to be like a child, to be innocent, to look at things, I think the Buddhists would say, with new eyes, right? Beginner's eyes. The Christmas tree itself, I discovered, first entered the American culture as an intentional strategy designed to cope with a holiday laden with crass materialism. And although originally a German custom, Unitarian minister Charles Wolin, an abolitionist, is credited with introducing it and popularizing it in New England as a way to bring simple pleasures into the house. Now, I don't know about you, live Christmas trees were never a simple pleasure for me, especially when you have a cat in the house, and then, comes March, and then your delivery person starts making fun of you for still having a tree in the house. But it was also a way to allow children as well to offer small gifts for their parents. And it is not surprising that the abolitionists were at the forefront of this new Christmas movement. They intuited a connection between abolitionists and progressive educational reforms, advocating that non-violence against children and freedom of and for human expression and flourishing. Even parents who didn't follow this theory during Christmas tended to be a little more lenient and generous with their children. It was a time to reverse the social norms and focus on children. Now today, we just sort of take this for granted, but before, particularly before the 1800s, children were just thought of as little adults, really. Many actually worked to support their families. It was really only with the development of the middle class and more public institutions, including public education, which again, I point out the Unitarians were always at the forefront of public education, that conceptually allowed children of all classes to develop and transcend their class. In some ways, the change in Christmas was to change the division from between classes to between ages. And the new way of looking at Christmas helped us create a new way of looking at children and our society. Unitarians were back in the day, quite the force in New England in the mid-19th century. I mean, think about today how social media can impact how and what we think about and how it even molds our society today, for better and for worse. But Unitarians back then were like the social influencers of the day, movers and shakers of that time in New England. We were prodigious writers, and many treatises and books with the theme of a family-centric Christmas and selfless children flooded the market year after year after year. Children's books became suitable as gifts and became the most common gift of the day. Many written by Unitarians. So think of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Dickens was a Unitarian. I could do a whole sermon just on the Christmas Carol, where a striving, greedy Ebenezer Scrooge learns how to be generous and family-oriented, as is his obedient but happy, selfless employee and family. So look at it from that frame. That is what they are trying to imbue upon the public. And in some ways, though, it's a lesson for those with wealth to be generous, as you will hear, I'm sure, at our stewardship kickoff in January. But while there's still but still in time, it enforces a culture of subservience of the oppressed. Back to that old bargain, short-term charity for long-term inequity. Right, so over the span of 100 years, Christmas was transformed from a time of controlled and sometimes uncontrolled anger from the poor against the rich to a time of a family-focused holiday. And I just want to say, to me, this is a great lesson. It's over the course of 100 years, so we should be thinking about how we change the culture over the course of 100 years to bring in more equity in our world, to complete our vision. Not that it's going to happen next year or the year after, but what do we need to do to instill our vision into the larger culture? And the truth is, the truth is probably somewhere in between all of those things. And we can look at stores on, although now it's gotten a little better with online buying, but I remember stores on Friday before Christmas, Black Friday, people desperate to gain an inexpensive price, and how sometimes they would become violent, right? We've seen those mall ads where people just go crazy just so that they can have something under the Christmas tree. We've seen instances of looting at retail stores, and I see that as reminiscent of bygone days when the poor dressed in costume and expressed their anger towards the wealthy. That is nothing new, just an expression of an old custom. Unitarian Universalists have always been at the forefront of believing that humanity, by its actions, will decide our fate. We believe that given the right conditions, humanity can improve itself. Sometimes with the best of intentions, we also serve to reinforce the status quo, which continues the inequities of the world that prevents people from reaching their potential. So let us awake to our potential, not for the commercialization of Christmas, not even for the charity of Christmas, but let us evolve into the equity of Christmas. Equity not just for one day or 1 month a year where we set aside norms, but rather a reminder that norms themselves may need to be set aside for real change and for real equity to be everlasting. That, to me, was the true work of Jesus of Nazareth every day, and not just on his fake birthday. May it be so. Please rise in your body and or spirit for our closing hymn, 235, Deck the Hall. Everybody can sing fa la 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 la. Our closing words from Rainier Maria, Rilke, you darkness from which I come, I love you more than all the fires that fence out the world, for the fire makes a circle for everyone so that no one sees you anymore. But darkness holds it all, the shape and the flame, the animal and myself, how it holds them, all powers, all sight, and it is impossible. Its great strength is breaking into my body. I have faith in the night. Please join me now in extinguishing our chalice. I am amazed all the candles stay lit. I don't know what happened to that one, but we extinguish this flame, but not the light